Recently, I had the opportunity to speak at the Ozark Homestead Expo, and down there, I met someone who told me that they make the sourdough bagels that are on my blog, but with cranberry and orange juice and orange zest, and I told her that I loved that. I needed to immediately try it. Seems like the perfect way to adjust this recipe for the upcoming season. So specifically what I did here is the usual bagel recipe, which is 4 cups of flour, half a cup of sourdough starter, a couple tablespoons of honey, a couple teaspoons of salt, and then usually it calls for a cup of water. I juiced the orange and then added enough water to make up the rest of the liquid in the recipe. I also added in some orange zest, and then I did not measure the cranberries, but I poured them in and they were absolutely delicious. So the way that this recipe works is you just let it sit out for a good long while. I think I let mine sit out for about 18 hours. Now, any sourdough recipe, of course, it matters how warm your house is for how long you can let something sit out before it over ferments. But a very dense dough like this, it's really hard to over ferment it. I've actually never had that happen, even in the summer months. And then I just divide it into 8 equal parts, shape them, allow them to rise until they're nice and puffy. Boil them in water that I've added baking soda and brown sugar to, and then bake them. Bagels can be so easily adjusted for so many flavors. I've never thought of this flavor profile, but I am so happy that I tried it. Last winter and fall, I made cranberry bread a lot with my no-knead artisan bowl, adding cranberry to that, and it became my favorite bread to toast, have butter and eggs with, and this bagel dough is the exact same way. Some of them were leftover. We didn't eat all of them the same day. We put them in a Ziploc bag in the fridge, and then we just would toast them like a half at a time. And I had mine toasted with butter and a fried egg. So good. Of course, also really good with cream cheese, but don't underestimate how delicious cranberry flavored sourdough bread products are toasted with butter and eggs. For the specific recipe that you can print out and the bake temperature, time, all of that, head over to farmhouseonboone.com, search bagels, and play around with the recipe. I really think that you're going to enjoy this particular variety. We've established that breakfast is an important meal of the day, and one thing that I have been adding to my breakfast routine is Armra, which happens to be the sponsor of today's video. You can do Armra a lot of different ways. You can put a scoop in any drink, just quickly blend it in and drink it down. I personally am adding it to my kefir smoothie. I love adding a nutritional boost to it, and Armra has been a fabulous addition. Armra colostrum is a bioactive whole food. It's physician founded and the only colostrum on the market validated with dual arm third-party clinical trial research. 4 servings is recommended daily, but because it is a bioactive whole food, you can take a lot more. I choose Armra over other colostrums because they're the only one to use cold chain biopotent pasteurization fermentation, which helps keep Armra's over 400 bioactive nutrients active and functional. It is packed with antimicrobials, antioxidants, peptides, micronutrients, minerals. Armra is also keto. It is gluten, fat, and casein free. I notice that I have so much energy in the morning, which helps me to really get going and take care of all the things that I need to do. As the busy holidays and Christmas season is coming up, Armra strengthens my immune health and helps me to feel supported. Armra is also great for beauty. It helps to support healthy, clear, radiant skin, decrease in acne, and less wrinkles and more hydrated skin. Armra is offering Farmhouse On Boon viewers a special offer. You can get 15% off your first order at tryarmra.com/farmhouseonboon for 15% off with the code farmhouseonboon. Now I am making up a batch of my sourdough pie crust, but with half freshly milled whole grain and half all-purpose flour. I like to do most of my recipes this way with half of each flour. That way I can get all of the benefits of whole grain and sourdough, but then also have it be lighter and fluffier than if I'm doing all whole grain. This pie crust is something that we make in our home all the time. If you've had trouble in the past with pie crust and you can't roll it out, adding in a little bit of sourdough starter has completely eliminated this problem for us. It is the easiest to roll out pie crust. Also really enjoy that you can stash it in the fridge for several days and it just gets more sour, and the action of the sourdough starter will work more on the grains as it sits, so you can make them ahead of time and then quickly make any recipe with them. Today for this fall breakfast menu, I am making some maple brown sugar pop-tarts. So I never promised that this is the most well-rounded collection of recipes or the healthiest. We're definitely trying to use quality ingredients and do long fermentation where we can. But these are a few splurges, some very fun things to enjoy in the fall. I always like to have a handful of special treats. These aren't everyday breakfasts, but for this maple sugar type of Pop-Tart, I actually didn't really add any maple. I did some butter, lots of cinnamon, brown sugar, and then rolled out the pie crust, folded them over, and baked them like little Pop-Tarts. I shared this similarly, I believe, back in the spring, and I made a homemade fruit preserve to go inside. Those were really, really good, a fresh flavor. But this one with the spicy cinnamon kind of lends itself better for a fall recipe to enjoy all season, maybe even a few months down the line for a Christmas morning breakfast, with being able to make a lot of the components beforehand. In fact, you could even put together the whole Pop-Tart beforehand and then just bake them fresh. It becomes something really easy that you could bake at a moment's notice. You can also do a glaze. Maybe a little powdered sugar, milk, and maple syrup would be really nice. I decided that they were already sweet enough. My kids really love these. It's finally time to get out the pumpkin. We just baked our very first pumpkin off of our front porch decor. Today I'm using canned pumpkin though, and adding it to some really bubbly sourdough starter, some eggs, a little oil, a little honey, baking soda, and salt. Gonna use some chocolate chunks and pumpkin spice and make some sourdough waffles that are very quick to come together and can be a staple year-round, but especially delicious with these additions this time of year. Usually if I know I'm going to be making such a sourdough discard heavy recipe like this, I will feed my starter with something that we really want to consume large quantities of, like whole grain flour or einkorn flour. These types of recipes are the reason why I keep so much sourdough starter on hand. Pancakes, waffles, pizza crusts, I can use them instantly as long as I have some fed sourdough starter going. I'm also milling up some more fresh flour so that I can use half whole grain and half all-purpose in a sweet roll dough. I have been dreaming up an apple variety because we have been getting so many apples. We don't have apples here on our little homestead. We planted apple trees several years ago, but they're still not doing much. But we do have orchards that we can go to. We've already been apple picking several times, and we've been making apple pies, apple butter. And today I want to use some of that goodness in a sweet roll dough. You can find this recipe on my blog by searching sourdough cinnamon rolls. I'm just doing the base dough, and then after it ferments, I will add some of my apple butter, which I've been simmering on the stove to remove a lot of the liquid and cook down the apples, as well as some diced apples. Now we did end up eating this without cream cheese, and then I also ended up making a cream cheese maple frosting for the leftovers the next day, and they were so much better with that cream cheese frosting. So definitely use the cream cheese frosting recipe for the cinnamon rolls just to add a little bit of fat and cream. Since this one doesn't have butter in the roll, it just has that apple butter, you want to add a little fat. It tastes really good with the frosting. I forgot to mention that I did not sweeten my apple butter because I plan to also give it spoonfuls of it to the baby. So I'm adding in a bit more sweetener just to make these slightly more indulgent.